Mr. Sergeant of Arms, invite the members into the chamber and close the doors. I hereby declare the House of Representatives of the 114th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee now in session. Will the members please stand? Will the visitors in the gallery please stand and remain standing through the Pledge of Allegiance? Representative Jones of Davison will introduce the chaplain of the day. Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. Today is a historic day as the state that gave the nation President Andrew Jackson and his cross by the Trail of Tears will now be led in ceremony by one of our nation's leading voices of indigenous rights and sovereignty across this nation. Marilyn Youngbird, whose tribal name is Chief Woman Among Chiefs, is a Native American healer, teacher, and lecturer. She's a member of the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara nations, the three affiliated tribes on the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation in North Dakota. Through her lectures and seminars, she's introduced people from all over the world to Native American philosophy and medicine, working at the intersections of Western, Native American, and Eastern medicines. Marilyn's bio is marked by a lifetime of service dedicated to uplifting the voice, rights, and healing of indigenous peoples. From serving as executive director of the Commission of Indian Affairs for the state of Colorado, to serving as the liaison for all tribal governments west of the Mississippi River for the administration of President Jimmy Carter. She worked with U.S. Senator Pete Domenici from New Mexico as a liaison between his Senate office and tribal governments in the state. She's worked with the Department of Justice to better handle the generational and extensive childhood trauma of indigenous children. She worked 28 years in Japan counseling and working with World War II survivors, and traveled to Bosnia and Croatia to help orphan children of war and widowed parents receive the care and service they need. But if you ask Marilyn to describe herself, she says this: I am the waves of wheat fields, the sea floor of the windswept North Dakota prairie, the wanting turquoise chiffon fingers of the northern lights that stretch and dance from heaven to earth on a clear, crisp summer night, the ancient cottonwood trees, the fragrance of the flowering wild rose bushes who line the banks and patiently wait to greet and wave to the rushing waters of the Missouri River, the child that plays in the earth's soft black soil next to grandpa and grandma, listening with innocent ears to their Arikara prayers as they plant corn and vegetables in early spring, the same soil my grandma planted my birth, umbilical cord, and placenta. And how appropriate is it to bring her here, this healer, this good troublemaker who put her body on the line to try and stop the Dakota Access Pipeline when she took up collective refuge with Native American elders and leaders from around the world to defend Native American sovereignty and dignity on their own land. How fitting is it to bring her here to a building and state rocked by its own historical traumas of dispossession and extraction and erasure and violence. Tennessee played a major role in the execution of the Indian Removal Act of 1830, with Native Americans being imprisoned at Fort Cass and later put in inhumane camps in Charleston, Tennessee. Displacement, imprisonment, and relocation killed thousands of indigenous people and separated them from their homelands. But indigenous people were never fully removed and have continued to survive here in Tennessee, first in hiding in the Smoky Mountains after the final removal in 1838 until today, where they celebrate and showcase their culture and continued fight to preserve their knowledge and history. So we must collectively acknowledge that the Tennessee State Capitol currently occupies the ancestral lands of the Cherokee, Shawnee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Creek peoples. Today, these people have nation boundaries in Oklahoma, North Carolina, and Mississippi after the Indian Removal Act of 1830 led to the forced removal of southern tribes to the west of the Mississippi River. In particular, the capital resides on the land ceded in the Treaty of Hopewell. We also acknowledge and pay respect to the enslaved Africans and their descendants who were forced to build this capital and make this building what it is today. We recognize and support the indigenous individuals and communities who live in Nashville and those forcibly removed from their homelands. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold our state up to live up to the values of uplifting our American Indian and indigenous peoples. And so finally, as I give the floor over to Ms. Marilyn, one of my grandmothers, I do so acknowledging the resistance of her presence. I do so in honor of the sacred charge that has led us to be here today and crossed our paths, and for the words and ceremony she will offer. Because as she leads the ceremony on the floor, she does so against a history that has left us bloody but unbowed, a history in a land that can never be removed or separated from its first peoples. And with that, Marilyn Youngbird, thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Speaker. I am so honored to be here with my brothers and sisters. We have all the same blood. And today I travel with our nation's brother eagle, mother eagle, father eagle. Today, every one of us here are looking into the future of the unknown. There isn't one of us in here that can predict what's going to happen. So my prayer today is to say thank you. Thank you to the grandfathers, Tunkashla, Ina, Uchi. Thank you, grandpas and grandmas, for bringing us all here. And I ask you to open up our heart so that we can see all the children on this motherland. We are your children, Mother Earth. You are the giver of life. Every breath we take, you give to us, Grandma. None of us can live without your breath. So I'd like you all to take a deep breath. This is the breath of life. None of us can live without this breath. And our Earth Mother gives it to us every single second of our life. And I want to say thank you to Grandma, our Mother Earth, for giving us this beautiful day, the sun that's shining above us, doctoring us, healing us, and giving us hope. I thank you, Grandpa, and I thank you, Grandma. And I ask our Grandma, Mother Earth, to listen to our footsteps. Because every footstep that we take, Grandma, is our prayer. Whatever we think and whatever comes out of our mouth, Grandma, we walk our prayer. Help us, Grandma, to have the best prayers, to honor one another, to love one another, to share with one another, and especially, Grandma, to look to the future for our children who are coming. Every one of us in this room today are 7 generations from our ancestors. You gave us life. You give us life. You gave our grandparents, our ancestors, life so that we could be here today. And I ask you to help us. Help us to center our life. Help us to become one with all of life. Help us to take care of all those that we don't understand. The wind, the rain, the fire, the earth, the minerals, and the food that we eat. I ask you to nourish our body, our mind, and our spirit so that we can be a whole being. We can use our mental, our physical, and our spiritual being to be that most beautiful human being you give us life to be. I ask you that, Grandma. I know you hear us. I know you want us to be those beautiful children you give us life to be. Help us to protect our life, the water, the food, the earth, the trees, the grass, all the four-leggeds and the wingets, those that swim in the water and out of the water, those that crawl under earth and in the earth. We are no less and we are no more. We are all one and the same because you give us that same breath that we breathe together. Grandmother, I am so thankful for my life. I am so thankful for all the people that you have introduced me to, my brothers and sisters throughout the world. You've taken me around the world to meet your children. Children of all languages, children of all colors. And we all greeted one another with love. We all saw one another as sister and brother, mothers and fathers. Today is a holy day for every one of us because not one of us have a promise for tomorrow. And whatever we do today, I pray we do it for the betterment of all life. And, you know, as Native people have prophecies. And I asked, and I was praying, I've been praying since my grandson asked me if I would please come and do a prayer. And I said to the grandpas and grandmas, please, what do you want your children to hear? Speak through me and tell them what they need to hear. And this is what she said. You must remind them that all life, all human beings have prophecies. And us Native people also have prophecies. She said, tell them of the prophecy that when NASA called and you helped organize a meeting between NASA and all of the elders in the Western Hemisphere. And all the natives came from Greenland, from Iceland, from Hawaii, from Central and South America, and we met in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with the NASA leaders. They wanted to hear what the natives' prophecies were saying. And there were many, many prophecies, but the one that stuck out that she asked me to share with you is the one, this elder from Montana, Assiniboine. He got up there, he was a soft, gentle, quiet man, and he told this prophecy of which is coming true. He said to NASA, "Why are you up in space? Why are you ruining our universe? You know what you're doing. You're changing our climate. You're changing our world. You need to stop." He said, "Our prophecy has told us that one day the winds will reach 300 miles an hour and it will blow you off the surface of the world." And he said, "If you don't stop what you're doing, it's coming true." And every time the wind blows 60, 80, 100, 150 miles an hour, I always think of this elder man telling his prophecy. We can stop it. We can listen. And we can ask Grandma to help us. Every one of us are powerful. We're her children. Every one of us can stop wars. Every one of us can stop anger and hatred and jealousy. Every one of us can stop and become the most beautiful human being that we're given life to be, and to just take care of one another. But I asked the grandpa and grandma this morning as I heard the news about the weather that's coming this weekend. And they're saying some of the most strongest winds on earth are going to happen this weekend. And I pray to you, Grandma, as I stand before my brothers and sisters today, hear my prayer. Have mercy on us. Protect us. Protect all the pilots that fly in the earth above us to travel and take your children here and there, wherever they decide to go. Protect the animals on earth. Protect the human beings and our children, especially our little children that are so innocent. Hear my prayer. I ask you today, Grandpa and Grandma, to please bless your children in this chamber, and to Mr. Speaker behind me. Please bless my grandson and all the Aboriginal people on this continent, all the people on this continent. Hear my prayer. Grandfathers and grandmothers, I want to say to you today how much I love you, how much I love my brothers and sisters who are here today. I know you're doing a great job. I know you're working hard for our people. I know you're working hard for our animals and those that fly in the air, our Eagle Nation, those that crawl on the earth. And I know you're working hard for our people who live in the water. And I pray that one day we will see the change where we'll all protecting one another and protecting all those that we don't understand. Hear my prayer, Tunkashla Ina, Uchi Oji-chan, Oba-chan. O ya te wa ya ka hoi. O ya te wa ya ka hoi. Chanu pa ki le wa ha he yo. O ya te wa ya ka hoi. Hey. O ya te wa ya ka hoi. O ya te wa ya ka hoi. Chanu pa ki le wa ha he yo. O ya te wa ya ka hoi he. Ho Mitakuye. God bless you.
Representative Jones will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the earth and all the species on this earth.
Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Roll call.
Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Ms. Speaker, 89 members present.
Please let the journal reflect Representatives Doggett, Farmer, Haston, Hemmer, McCalman, Kumar, Vaughn, Raper, and Pearson are excused. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Welcoming, honoring, and announcements.
Welcoming honor announcements. We have presentations. Thank you. Representative Alexander, you are recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I request the Sergeant of Arms escort our guest into the chamber.
Mr. Sergeant of Arms, escort the guests to the well, please. Representative Alexander, you are recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I request that the clerk read the resolution.
Mr. Clerk, please read the resolution.
House Joint Resolution 304 by Representative Alexander, a resolution to honor the disabled victims of filicide on the day of mourning in the state of Tennessee. Whereas every year on March 1st, the disability community gathers across the nation for a day of mourning to remember the disabled victims of filicide, that is, people murdered by their family members or caregivers. And whereas these murders are often portrayed as justifiable and inevitable due to the perceived burden of having a disabled person in the family, and whereas victims' lives are therefore assumed to have lesser value because of their disability, and whereas disability is a natural part of the human experience, and whereas prevention of filicide requires increased awareness, and whereas many victims' names remain unknown or without acknowledgement, and it's most appropriate that we remember and honor the victims from Tennessee who tragically lost their lives. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 114th General Assembly of the state of Tennessee, the Senate concurring, that we respectfully pay tribute to and honor the lives of Chucky Sweeten, age 39, Ed Dosett, age 44, Fiona Mitchell, age 10, David Leith, age 57, Karen Drager, age 35, Robert McClancy, age 56, Carissa Mark, age 4, Waislawa Petliski, age 57, Arville Rhodes, age 63, Shaneka Wepper, age 30, Andrea Ruth, age 12, Skylar Craighead, age 5 months, Rebecca Cotton, age 22, Shirley Beck, age 39, Melisha Moiser Ludwig, age 38, Sue Liner, age 84, Trayvon Williamson, age 7, Ellen McKenzie, age 48, Shannon Cooper, age 40, Joe Daniels, age 5, Elsie Green, age 65, Evelyn Bailey, age 93, Betty Cruz, age 72, Sheila Murray, age 68, Ben Thompson, age 72, Callie Branch, age 73, Saeed Nelson, age 14, Mandy No, age 38, John Hoover, age 44, Kadaris Maddox, age 13, and James Parham, age 40.
Representative Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you, Speaker. Members, these are the names of the people in the state of Tennessee that have disabilities and were killed by their caregivers or their loved ones that we know. We honor them today. Today, I want to welcome Courtney Johnson to our chamber. Courtney lives in Johnson City, Tennessee. She was a magna cum laude graduate of East Tennessee State University. She's a writer, a presenter, and nationally recognized disability advocate who trains families and professionals in how people with disabilities can use argumentative and assistive communications, or AAC devices, which is how she herself communicates. Courtney has autism and other disabilities and a chronic illness. She is a governor-appointed member of the Tennessee Council on Developmental Disabilities, which is presented here today. I first met Courtney during Disability Day on the Hill last year. She shared that she has led an annual vigil for several years to recognize Disability Day of mourning to honor Tennessee's disabled victims of filicide, or murder by family members or caregivers. She asked me what we might do more to recognize these victims and call attention to this issue. We immediately worked together for Tennessee's First House joint resolution recognizing disabled victims. Today, I stand with Courtney to recognize the infinite value of the disabled lives we have tragically lost in Tennessee. Thank you, Speaker, if you will come down and join us in the well for a picture.
Representative Lynn, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request that the Sergeant at Arms escort our guests into the chamber.
Mr. Sergeant of Arms, please escort the guests to the well. Representative Lynn, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, like many of you, I'm often asked to judge the American Legion Oratory Contest, and I'm very proud to tell you that a young lady from Wilson County has represented Tennessee at the highest level for our state. Abigail Wicker is a high school senior from Mount Juliet. She is active in arts in her community, and she pursues her passion for agriculture through FFA. Abigail is serving as the 2024-25 Regional Vice President for the Middle Tennessee FFA, and she is currently a state officer candidate with Tennessee FFA. She intends to study agricultural business and organizational communications at MTSU in the fall and sees agriculture advocacy as shaping public policy as part of her future. Abigail is a two-time state winner of the American Legion Oratorical Contest, which focuses on citizens' responsibilities in respect to the Constitution. She represented the American Legion Oratorical Contest for Tennessee at the national finals in 2023 and in 2024, and advanced to the semifinal round in both years. Abigail will be presenting an excerpt from one of her winning speeches entitled, "We the People." Mr. Speaker, with me I have Abigail Wicker, Robin Wicker, her mother, John Wicker, Brittany Barnett, her teacher, and Terry Worrell from our American Legion post in Mount Juliet. Mr. Speaker, would you please recognize Abigail to read part of her speech?
Miss Abigail, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Growing up, I watched my father get up every morning and put on a uniform. But it was not just an ordinary uniform. It was the uniform of a man serving in the United States military. Most days, he would walk out the door in the morning and return later that night. There were other times when he would be gone for weeks or months to a place far away from me. I came to realize that he was leaving his family and sacrificing his time to serve our country and to protect something that I couldn't fully grasp at that time. He had taken an oath years beforehand to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I always looked up to my dad and eventually wondered, what could I do to serve the country that he has served so well? I have come to realize that while all men and women who have joined the United States military have taken that same oath to defend the Constitution, I have come to believe that it is not just their responsibility to protect and uphold it. It is the job of all American citizens. The opening paragraph of the Constitution, the preamble, begins with a very important phrase, "We the people." These three words are not to be overlooked because they help us define the way our country is run. They set us apart in a rather extraordinary manner because most other documents of this nature would begin with a statement on behalf of a ruler. However, the Constitution begins with a statement of authority from the people of the nation. The Constitution was written by the people and for the people. It was not the government designating its power over the people, but instead, the people delegating and limiting the government's power over them. This phrase was not included by mere happenstance, but was written intentionally to remind the people of the duty that was given to them by the men who founded our country nearly 250 years ago. However, these words are also a plea to American citizens to do their part, to safeguard the freedoms that are so vital to the preservation and survival of the United States of America. Therefore, while many people have protected the liberties granted to us in the Constitution by joining the armed forces or by serving in a government office, others who are outside of those roles may ask the same question that I once did. What can I do? While the Constitution does require citizens to fulfill certain obligations, we have also been given the ability to benefit our country in other ways that are not mandated. For example, through several constitutional amendments, United States citizens, male and female, over the age of 18, are granted the right to vote for those who will represent them in government. This is a right that many have fought for, and it should not be taken lightly. As United States citizens, it is also crucial that we vote for individuals who will adhere to a specific ideal that the founding fathers of our country considered to be a critical component of successful government. The Constitution divides the government into three branches, and it outlines a clear separation of powers between them. Additionally, there are specific checks and balances between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches that were put in place by the founders of our country to guard the generations to come against tyranny and to prevent overreach within any of the branches. The purpose of this doctrine of constitutional law was to protect all of the other rights and freedoms granted to United States citizens through the Constitution. If these rights are valuable to us, we must elect officials who will maintain this system. Recently, I had the opportunity to hear a pastor from Eastern Europe speak about the situation in his country, where the president has been given unchecked authority and the scope of their executive branch is increasing disproportionately in power. Their system of checks and balances has been disregarded, and consequently, the freedoms laid out in their Constitution are being abused. This is just one example of why maintaining the constitutionally prescribed framework for our branches of government is a key to conserving the rights provided in our Constitution. James Madison once wisely said, quote, "I believe there are more instances of the abridgment of freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachments by those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations," end quote. This is precisely why we must be determined to uphold the integrity of our Constitution as it was originally conceived by the authors, who understood the necessity of checks and balances. If we choose to neglect this, we may allow those in the highest positions to corrupt the rights we have been granted, and citizens may find that their freedom would be in the hands of whoever is in power at a given time. In order to prevent this from happening, United States citizens must be informed enough to understand the ramifications of tampering with this founding document. And as citizens in a free country, we have the ability to educate ourselves and become informed, not only about our history, but also about the way our government operates. Ben Franklin once stated, quote, "It is the first responsibility of every citizen to question authority," end quote. And being knowledgeable in these areas allows people to understand and identify errors in their government. Moreover, being educated citizens is an important first step, simply because we must know what freedoms are guaranteed by the Constitution in order to contend for them when they are in jeopardy. It is truly the mission of all Americans to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. If we leave this privilege to a select few, we will face the possibility of losing the rights we've been granted. In the words of President John Adams, quote, "But a constitution of government once changed from freedom can never be restored. Liberty, once lost, is lost forever," end quote. In light of this, we, the people, must do all that we can to protect the Constitution of the United States so that it can continue to protect us. Thank you.
You want to speak? You?
Representative Lynn.
Mr. Speaker, would you recognize Senator Pody? I did not notice him walk in with the group, and I apologize for that. It was my nerves, I'm sure.
Senator Pody, you're
Thank you.
recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just hope she doesn't run against me.
No, I am sure not.
Representative Lamb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And one last person, Terry Worrell. He represents the Mount Juliet American Legion Post, and thank God for our American Legion's posts across our great state of Tennessee. They are stoking the fire of patriotism in these young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. On behalf of the almost 21,000 veterans of the American Legion members from across our great state in all of your representative areas, and I want to recognize Commander John Davis, who's in the balcony today. We are here this morning, and I thank you for this opportunity to proudly stand before you and proclaim with young people like Abigail, our country's future is bright. Young people who understand and proudly proclaim the glory of our country's Constitution. Young people who proudly proclaim their love of God, their love of country, and their love of the family, like John and Robin Wicker, her parents. Our hats off to them. We can be proud of this moment, and Abigail, don't stop now, young lady. Your future is bright. Your intelligent voice and your conviction is a motivating factor. Thank you and good job. Thank you.
Representative Lane, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, would you please join us for a photo?
We are under welcoming, honoring, and announcements. Representative Parkinson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today I rise with great sorrow. Yesterday, I lost my closest friend and prominent pastor in Memphis to gun violence. And I want his family to know. His wife, co-pastor Sheila Floyd, his son, Brennan Hill, little Ricky, his daughter, Christina Floyd, his granddaughter, Amira, to know that we love them and we are praying for them and for their comfort, and that we honor the life and legacy of Pastor Ricky D. Floyd.
Thank you. Representative Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Bolso, if you'd like to stand over here with me while I do this real quick. Today is March 13th, and the House passed a bill recognizing March 13th as Charles Strobel Day. I encourage everybody to go out and volunteer and do something for the betterment of our community in recognition of Father Charlie Strobel. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Russell and I, as servants of Loudoun County, would like to welcome Billy and Carol Pickle and their family. They're up in the balcony with us today. Billy is the road superintendent, and Ms. Carol leads the GOP in Loudoun County. So give them a big warm welcome, please.
Representative Slater.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And today I understand we have a great team of pages. Two of them are very special to me because I am honored to introduce to you our oldest granddaughter, Victoria Watson, and then one of our grandsons, Isaac Watson. They are visiting here on spring break from the Commonwealth of Virginia. Please make sure that you keep them busy today and give them a warm welcome.
Representative Sapicki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, Representative Capley and myself would like to welcome Youth Leadership Murray County. If you'll stand and give them a round of applause today.
Representative Cochran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, just two quick things. First, I want to welcome, I have a page with me today, a senior from McMinn Central High School, Mr. Bryson Rodden, if we could make him feel welcome. And so Bryson and I hope to watch the McMinn Central Chargerettes this weekend in the state tournament. That they had a loss last night, and so that season ended. But want to congratulate them on an incredible season. 34-2 record this season. The 6 seniors, including my niece Reagan Baker, finished their careers undefeated in district and region play. They have multiple championships, 3 consecutive state championship appearances. Also, congratulations to Coach Johnny Morgan, who has retired after 48 years and over 1,100 wins with the Central Chargerettes. So thank you all if you'll give them a hand. Thank you.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a great honor that I'd like to welcome the over 6,000 women of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority from the states of Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama, who's descending on Knoxville this weekend. We have 2 proud members in the Senate chamber, Senators Oliver and Lamar, that are members of that great sorority. So they'll be in Knoxville all weekend. So if you're in Knoxville, you're going to see a whole lot of ladies dressed in pink and green. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Martin of Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a big group of pagers with me today. Lucy Whitmer, Weston Yoder, Caleb Yoder, Josiah Miller, Marcy Hurst, and Marilyn Troyer, and their family are joining us here today as well. They are from the Berea Mennonite School in Rutherford in Gibson County. Please welcome them to the House. Thank you.
Representative Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know, members, if you all were able to attend the governor's prayer breakfast this morning, but we had a fellow who was the speaker. His name is James Lowe. You all may know him as Coach Baseball. If you don't, I would encourage you to go on Instagram or other social media outlets to figure out what this guy does. Coach Baseball is here today. You all passed House Resolution 61. I'm going to read just a quick sentence from there of what he does. Coach Baseball's mission is to revolutionize youth sports by replacing a win-it-all Colts mentality with one that celebrates the joy of play, personal growth, thereby making baseball fun, accessible to all children. He unites, he connects with young folks across this country through the game of baseball. So it's my honor, Mr. Speaker, today to welcome Coach Baseball. He's just to my right over here, standing up in between the columns. Welcome him today. Thanks for all you do, Coach Baseball.
Attaboy. There you go. Representative Hicks of Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and members. Want to make a quick announcement about the appropriation amendments. This is just a reminder that appropriation amendments can be filed in my office, Suite 606, until Monday, March 17th by 2 p.m. It is highly recommended that all requests of legal services are made by close of business tomorrow, Friday, March 14th, in order to allow sufficient time for drafting to meet the filing deadline on Monday. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Representative Chisholm.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I want to wish a happy birthday to the greatest intern that the world has ever known, Miss Kendall Fletcher. Wave your hand. Happy birthday to you.
Representative Love.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would ask that the members would rise. On this past Sunday, the commander of the North Precinct here in Nashville, Commander Anthony McClain, died. He had a heart attack around February the 13th and suffered for many weeks until his transition. He was a member of the armed forces before he became a police officer and worked his way up through the ranks in Metro Police and commanded a great group of men over there in the North Precinct. I would ask that we would have a moment of silence for Commander Anthony McClain. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, I feel like I'm in committee again. This coming Tuesday is Ag Day. At 7:30 Tuesday morning, breakfast will start. And about 9 or 8:45 on the Beth Harwell Plaza, we'll be starting with remarks, and then the corn shelling contest will take place thereafter. We'll be competing against the Senate, the House will be competing against the Senate, the AG, and the governor's office. So I'd like to see us bring something back to the House this time. So y'all please come out, celebrate, participate. And I do believe we're going to have wonderful weather, so thank God for that.
Thank you. Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While we're bragging on some of our folks back home, right now over in Murfreesboro, the mighty Portland Panthers, the girls basketball team, is playing in the state championship. They started about 11 o'clock today, and so let's move along quick so I can get it over to Murfreesboro. And I'm kidding. I know I won't make it, but good luck, ladies.
Representative Sparks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to wish my mother outlaw, Brenda Smith, happy birthday. She's 8th% Cherokee Indian, seriously. Also want to wish my sister-in-law, April Smith, a happy birthday as well. Y'all give them a round of applause.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, in the last couple of weeks, you should have gotten an email from my spouse, my lovely bride, who is wanting to help raise awareness as it relates to TPAC. Your spouses have all been invited to a luncheon on Wednesday. There are some tickets available, limited tickets available for Mamma Mia on Wednesday night, the show at TPAC. And so there's an opportunity for you and your spouses to get involved and hear about the great stuff that's going on at TPAC. As you know, the General Assembly has made a sizable investment in making sure the arts are protected here in our great state. And if you have an opportunity, invite your spouse to come to luncheon on Wednesday to find out more about it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Representative Towns.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Chairman Hicks, I'd like to ask Chairman Hicks a question. Chairman, he made the announcement about our appropriations, and my question to you is, what are the possibilities, the probabilities, or the likelihood, or the kind of sortedness that we may get a little money for our districts? I'd like to get a direct answer from you for that.
Representative Towns, that would be a 0 because this is not the time or place for that question. You can walk right over there and ask him if you so choose. This is welcoming, honoring, and announcements. All right, thank you. Representative Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you, Speaker. It's very rare that I get my husband to drive from Johnson City, Tennessee to come down here, but he's up in the balcony. I'd like to welcome him along with his fraternity brother, Kevin Pruitt, and his wife, Kim. They were with me at the prayer breakfast this morning. Glad to have them here.
Welcome, honor, announcements. Seeing none. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Introduction to resolutions.
Leader Lamberth, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that all resolutions properly filed be introduced pursuant to Order Number 17 and placed on the consent calendar and referred to the appropriate standing committee.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Senate Joint Resolutions congratulatory memorializing.
Leader Lamberth, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that all Senate joint resolutions congratulatory memorializing and honor that has to be placed on the consent calendar pursuant to Order Number 17.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Resolutions lying over.
Leader Lamberth, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that all resolutions lying over be referred to the appropriate standing committee.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Introduction of bills.
Leader Lamberth, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will note that Representative Towns has followed your instructions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that House Bill 1425 through 1434 be introduced and passed on first consideration.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Senate bills on first consideration.
Leader Lamberth, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that Senate bills 48, 88, 92, 101, 158, 204, 206, 248, 251, 390, 448, 497, 518, 531, 544, 586, 704, 715, 758, 765, 766, 769, 835, 1051, 1114, 1137, 1279, 1281, 1285, 1290, 1301, 1304, 1305. Transmitted by the Senate be held on the desk pending third consideration of the companion House bills.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Senate bills on second consideration. House bills on second consideration.
Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that House Bill 1424 be passed on second consideration and be held on the desk or referred to the appropriate standing committee.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Additions and memorials, reports from standing committees, reports from select committees, calendars. Mr. Speaker, the House has a consent calendar.
Chair Lady Moody, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of the consent calendar on third and final consideration in keeping with Rule 50.
Chair Lady moves passage of the consent calendar. Probably second to Mr. Clerk. Any objections have been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no objections filed.
Anyone seeking recognition on the consent calendar? Representative Gant, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that all members voting in the affirmative on item 11 of the consent calendar be added as co-prime sponsors with Shelby County delegation listed first.
Exclusion duly noted. Without objections, ordered. Anyone else seeking recognition on the consent calendar? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of the consent calendar vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Girls eye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 90, no nays.
Having received a constitutional majority, I declare the consent calendar passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, the House has a regular calendar.
First bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 186 by Chairman Slater relative to surgical assistance. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Representative Slater, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 174.
Representative Slater moves substituting form Senate Bill 174 without objection. So ordered. Representative Slater.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 174 on third and final consideration.
Representative Slater moves passage of Senate Bill 174 on third and final consideration. By seconded. Ms. Clerk, call the First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Slater, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Current law limits the ability of a healthcare facility to hire a surgical technician to 3 credentialing entities. House Bill 186 will add the American Board of Surgical Assistants to the list of approved credentialing bodies. This will expand access to healthcare services while maintaining quality healthcare. With that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Slater renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of Senate Bill 174 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Jonesy, you and McCoy. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 89, no nays, 1 present, not voting.
Senate Bill 174 having received a constitutional majority, everybody declare passed without objection. Most reconsider table. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Joint Resolution 17 by Chairman Powers and others, a resolution urges the United States Congress to repeal all taxes on income and enact a national retail sales tax as specified in H.R. 25, the Fair Tax Act of 2023.
Representative Powers, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of HJR 17.
Representative Powers moves adoption. Probably seconded. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Powers, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. HJR 17 supports the Fair Tax Bill, H.R. 25, that was first introduced in Congress in 2005. It's been introduced in Congress in every Congress since then and supports a national consumption tax in America while protecting Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. HJR 17 urges Congress to consider this proposal once again in the current Congress. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Powers needs a motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative McKenzie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So what your bill will do is to urge Congress to charge our citizens basically a quarter on every dollar that they spend in a retail fashion.
Representative Powers.
Thank you. And it's basically the projections that I've seen is anywhere from 17% to 23%. But yeah, it is a national consumption tax.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you. So, so with the state, we're roughly say 9.5 across our state. So would our 9.5% be tacked on top of that?
Representative Powers.
Yeah, yes, it would, but it would do away with all the other taxes that we have to do, all of our Social Security tax, Medicare tax, income tax. It would do away with all of those and just be a straight consumption tax like we have here in the state of Tennessee.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And, you know, and I spent a lot of time on county commission, and one of my biggest arguments is how, and we can talk about it in gory detail, but exactly how regressive a sales tax, sales tax is on the people that can least afford to pay for it. This is going to, if this is passed at the federal level with our blessing, it's going to put a huge burden on our working people, our working poor, our working people that just got a house and a car and just trying to make it, trying to put, clothes on their kids' backs, groceries on their table. They're going to basically spend half of their income. This is closer to 50% than it is 0%. So we're going to put a third to a half of our salaries in a tax. Whereas if you're a millionaire, that's going to be an infinitesimally small number when you're done. Multi-millionaires. So, a quarter of that. Okay. How much are they paying in sales tax? Probably about the same thing. They may buy a nice new car or buy caviar and steak, but incrementally, they're going to be taxed at a much, much lower rate than a person that's just out there just trying to work, trying to take care of their kids, trying to get their kids through college, and try to keep them fed. So I think this is it's a hugely regressive form of taxation. We have to give our government some energy to keep it going, but this is not the way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And what this does, too, for the lower income, too, it does give them a rebate in that form. But, you're basically looking at about 30% of their income. But, you think about it, if you look back at the Bible, the Lord tells us to give, everybody to give 10%. Whether you're a rich man or a poor man, he wants 10%, no more, no less. And nothing would be more fair than that, than the tithes that we pay in every year or every month to our church. And I think a fair tax is a great way to do that, and it's the way we do it in the state of Tennessee, and I hope we can do that at the national level, too.
All right. Representative Lafferty, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I recognize this is simply a House joint resolution. However, I'd like to try and take a second to correct some of the inaccuracies that were just stated here on this floor. Representative Powers did point out already that there is a threshold of income under which you will get a rebate for any sales tax that you sell. Also left out of the conversation a moment ago was the fact that this fair tax plan would eliminate all of the taxes at every step of manufacturing as it goes up. Taxes would only be applied at the retail end. Again, no taxes along all of the steps of production. All of that would be eliminated. That would lower the cost of production. At the end, it would be a net zero change in everybody's tax burden, except for those on the lowest end of the range, who again would get that rebate. So thank you for the time, people. Thank you, Chairman.
Representative Powers.
And that's true, and thank you for pointing that out. And the people that make more, those millionaires or whatever, they're going to spend a lot more than people at the lower income level, too. So they're going to be taxed a lot more than what the lower income level people are anyway. So with that, I renew my motion.
Representative Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move previous question.
Previous question being called. Is there objection? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of House Joint Resolution 17, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Williams, aye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 69, 22 nays.
House Joint Resolution 17, received the constitutional majority, hereby declare adopted without objection. Most reconsider table. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 115 by Leader Lamberth and others relative to the disclosure of tax information. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Leader Lamberth, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 1292.
Leader Lamberth moves substitute and conform Senate Bill 1292 without objection. So ordered. Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to move passage of Senate Bill 1292 on third and final consideration.
Leader Lamberth moves passage of Senate Bill 1292 on third and final consideration. Second, Mr. Clerk, call First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This literally fixes a glitch last year where we instructed the department to publish certain information that is illegal to publish. That was the names of the businesses that got a franchise and excise tax rebate. We forgot at that time to take out a criminal penalty for folks that publish that information that work for the government. So no one has been prosecuted on this. No one should be prosecuted on this. But this does fix that glitch so that individuals that work with the department are not prosecuted for doing exactly what this body voted for them to do. With that, I renew my motion.
Leader Lamberth news his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none, let your own reflect. Representative Parkinson is excused. We are voting on Senate Bill 1292. All those in favor vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Lafferty, aye. Cochran, aye. Harris, aye. Reeves, aye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 90, no nays.
Senate Bill 1292, I'm received constitutional majority. Everybody declare passed without objection. Most reconsider stable. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1320 by Chairman Howell and others relative to transportation.
Chairman Howell, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 1320 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Howell moves passage by consecutive. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Chairman Howell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, the Transportation Modernization Act, as you probably recall, was passed in 2023. Proved to be a tremendous tool for TDOT. Many of the tools that were put in the TMA in 23 enabled TDOT to swiftly and efficiently respond to the aftermath of Hurricane Helene and the destruction of much of the infrastructure in East Tennessee. But this was the first time that the TMA had been used in a situation like that, been applied during an emergency. So with that practical experience under their belt, after much discussion with TDOT and the administration, there's a few tweaks that we believe will make the TMA an even better tool for TDOT, and this bill does that. The first one allows members of the selection committee, which selects and approves the contractors' bids, to actually communicate with each other. This seems like a good thing. It helps eliminate irregularities and outliers in the scoring process. And the second thing it does is the TMA does, the current statute does not allow the TMA to allow emergency use of design build, CMGC, those types of tools that we gave to TDOT. And the only way they could use that during emergency was through an executive order number 106. So this bill says, moving forward, if this bill passes, we won't need an executive order. That power will lie with the Commissioner of Transportation. With that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Chairman Howell renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. My questions go to the changes made to the selection process. How does it benefit or allow us to better serve communities that have been devastated by disasters by allowing members of the selection committee to communicate with each other before they present their scores independently? We're removing the independence of each of those scores, allowing them to communicate, collude, whatever, when scoring proposals that were once currently done independently. How does that benefit or make the process better?
Chairman Howell.
Thank you for the question. In practical application, it was discovered that it helps remove biases, and the scoring is no longer averaged as the way it was under the original TMA bill. They are now totaled, which gives a more accurate score. And in practical application, it has worked. It appears under the executive order, it worked well to do it in the way that this bill proposes.
Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm unclear on how it protects against biases when these individuals get together and decide as a group what the score could or should be. That seems to expose us more to collusion or more to make us more vulnerable to bid rigging rather than people scoring something independently. And even if there's an outlier on a selection committee, the scores being averaged seems to protect every bid rather than them being computed as a cumulative point total. I'm unclear on how allowing these individuals, removing that independence, better protects us. It seems like the current system works better to protect taxpayers who are paying for these projects.
Chairman Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the question. In practical application, the communication has proved that it has revealed some situations where an RFP proposer may have had situations in the past that the committee as a whole was not aware of, and by communication they could make each other aware of situations that we did not want or do not want to arise under current RFPs. And communication, I think, always works best when you have people on a committee, and we just feel like this will work better.
Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that. I just, the way that committees work and the way that people apply pressure to each other sometimes on these committees, and it seems to that increase the possibility of bid rigging or something of that nature, and greatly concerns me. And then my final question is if these changes are absolutely necessary and they think they're going to work better, how come they all expire on July 1st, 2029, and then we rewrite the law to not even reflect current law? If it was just for purposes of responding to an emergency, how come in 2029 they're not going back to the current system, but they're going to a wholly separate system as opposed to the one we're adopting today?
Chairman Howell.
Well, as you know, Chairman, it's not unusual to have a sunset provision in law, and this was just one of those situations where we said let's do a sunset. We can renew it, as GovOps often does, and it probably will be renewed, but it was just one of those provisions where a sunset would allow TDOT and the committee to look at it again.
Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And usually in the sunset, it either goes away or it reverts back to the way it was prior to the enactment. But in this, these changes not only go away, but they change from current law. So it's not the usual sunset provision. It actually works very different from the current sunset provision. So if we want it to work one way in 2029 and forward, why aren't we adopting that today rather than changing the law for the next 4 years, and then rather than reverting back to current law, we're changing it again? It seems like we're making the process harder for the people who look to do business and do these projects.
Chairman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, as you know, we often tweak laws up here, and in this situation, we're tweaking the TMA now. That's what we're doing. It's been 2 years since we passed it. So I don't think it's unusual for us to look ahead and put in a safeguard. So moving forward, if we want to do a sunset in a way that we think might help TDOT better, I think it behooves us to do that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I didn't do my motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of House Bill 1320, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 71, 16 nays.
House Bill 1320, unreceived constitutional majority. Everybody declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 341 by Representative Gillespie, relative to collection of biological specimens for DNA analysis. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Representative Gillespie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 0371.
Representative Gillespie moves to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 371 without objection. So ordered. Representative Gillespie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 0371 on third and final consideration.
Representative Gillespie moves passage of Senate Bill 371 on third and final consideration. Second, Mr. Clerk, call First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Gillespie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is a pretty straightforward bill. What it is, basically, right now, there are inmates currently on death row in Tennessee for a variety of different crimes that they've committed. More than half of them right now have never had their DNA collected. And what this bill would seek to do is to require that collection before they're no longer here. And why this is important is specifically because there could be rape kits out there that have never been processed, or maybe they have been processed, but there's no match because those inmates have never had their collection of the DNA collected before. This goes beyond just sexual assault kits. There are a variety of crimes that this could solve and let victims and their families have a little bit of closure. With that, I renew my motion.
Representative Gillespie renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Towns, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Sponsor, help me with this. As I understand it, if a person is found innocent, that DNA is going to automatically be destroyed, not being maintained in that DNA bank. Is that correct?
Representative Gillespie.
I don't believe that has anything to do with this legislation.
Representative Towns.
You got it. That's a different bill.
Representative Gillespie.
Yes, it's not this bill.
Okay.
Representative Towns.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Speaker. Good morning to the sponsor. This is for all inmates who are serving felony time, or will it include those who are in the jails doing misdemeanor time also?
Representative Gillespie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Absolutely. I'm not sure where the confusion is there. This applies only to those on death row, currently serving on death row. So they have been convicted. They have gone through all the appeals, all the processes. Yeah. So, and I don't know how many number of people we're talking about here, but it's not a large number. But yeah.
Representative Hardaway.
All right, so this is restricted to death row inmates.
Representative Gillespie.
Thank you. Yes, that's the only thing this bill addresses. Nothing else.
Representative Hardaway.
All right, thank you, Speaker, and I actually support the bill. Thank you.
Representative Travis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move previous question.
Previous question has been called. Is there objection? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of Senate Bill 371 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Moon aye, Sapiki aye. Bricken aye. Bricken aye. There you go. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 86, no nays, 3 present, not voting.
Senate Bill 371 having received constitutional majority. Everybody declare passed without objection. Most reconsider table. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 501 by Chair Lady Littleton and others relative to juvenile justice.
Chair Lady Littleton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 501 on third and final consideration.
Chair Lady Littleton moves passage. Probably seconded. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Chair Lady Littleton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill This bill would create the Juvenile Justice Review Commission, and it's modeled after the work of the Second Look Commission has been doing for the past 14 years. It will establish a multidisciplinary team of experts in their respective fields, all of which play a role in the juvenile justice system. The Second Look, which I serve on, reviews severe abuse cases of dependent and neglect. It has done a lot of great work analyzing important cases of how we can do better. It lets us see what does and does not work, including recommendations for what we could improve on. The bill creates the juvenile justice version of this commission, which will serve to help us to do the same in regards to juvenile delinquents. With that, I renew my motion.
Chair Lady Littleton renews the motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Capley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move previous question.
Previous question being called. Is there objection? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of House Bill 501 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Hardaway aye. Moon aye. Moody aye. Barrett aye. Moon aye. Ms. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 88, no nays, 2 present, not voting.
House Bill 501 having received constitutional majority. Everybody declare passed without objection. Most reconsider table. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 693 by Chairman Baum and others relative to pharmacy. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Chairman Baum, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 569.
Chairman Baum moves to substitute and conform Senate Bill 569 without objection. So ordered. Chairman Baum, you're recognized.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 569 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Baum moves passage of Senate Bill 569 on third and final consideration. Probably second. Ms. Clerk, call First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Chairman Baum, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last year, the Tennessee General Assembly passed legislation allowing pharmacists to prescribe and dispense medicines and tests in 8 new areas. This was designed to increase access to medical care because 90% of all Tennesseans live within 5 miles of a pharmacy, but they don't all have a primary care physician. This bill follows that bill to make it clear that those provisions apply to 2 other sections of the code, and it also changes the code to permit pharmacists to have a consultation visit with a patient when prescribing contraceptions and to charge an administration fee for that visit. This bill is the result of an agreement with the Tennessee Medical Association and the Tennessee Pharmacists Association. Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Chairman Baum renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Dixie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Baum, what was the distance that you said it has to be from not having a primary care physician? Was it 5 miles? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that part.
Chairman Baum.
The bill places no geographic limit on anything. I was just making the point that the bill increases access to health care, medical care, because 90% of all Tennesseans live within 5 miles of a pharmacy, but they don't all necessarily have a primary care physician. This enables them to receive some of these tests and medicines spur of the moment on the weekend after hours, as opposed to setting up an appointment with a primary care physician and having to wait 2 or 3 weeks before the appointment. I was just making the point that it increases access to health care because people live close to pharmacies.
Representative Dixie.
Thanks for the clarification.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sponsor, does this bill, is it allowing for a fee to be put on contraception, medicine? Tell me what you're doing with that part of the bill.
Chairman Baum.
This bill would allow a pharmacist who has a consultation with a patient to charge a fee for that consultation. Now, that fee should be paid for by insurance, the same way when you go to a pharmacy and you get a flu shot, you don't pay anything, but your insurance does. It would allow a pharmacist to charge a fee for that consultation.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, there are a lot of poor people in this state that don't have insurance that still need these services. They will need the consultation. Is there provisions within this bill that would allow them to get the consultation free if they meet, if they're below a certain poverty level?
Chairman Baum.
There's not, but I want to reiterate that the bill is designed to help increase access to those kinds of services, because prior to this set of bills, pharmacists weren't allowed to independently prescribe and dispense this medication at all. This set of bills allows them to, and if they have a consultation, it allows them to charge a fee. Part of that is designed to give the pharmacists an incentive to provide these services. Otherwise, it would be possible for the law to have changed so that pharmacists are able to prescribe and dispense, but they just choose not to because they can't charge a fee for the consultation.
Leader Camper.
I agree with increasing access by having pharmacists being able to do this, but I do feel like, we have a lot of people that live below the poverty line who are also in that outside the radius that you talked about, having access to pharmacies, and I think they would not be able to benefit from this because there is this extra fee. And I just feel like we should have some way within the bill to allow them to waive that fee, so that the people can still get the service and take advantage of what it is you're trying to do with this bill.
Chairman Baum. Oh, sorry, Leader Camper.
Lastly, will this bill allow for TennCare recipients to take advantage of it if they go to one of these new pharmacies that are allowed to, do the consultation, and in that case, allow them to get the fee waived?
Chairman Baum.
Yes, under the bill, TennCare patients and patients with other types of insurance would be eligible to receive these services. Again, the bill is just trying to provide pharmacists with an incentive to offer these services. The bill does not require pharmacists to offer an additional service like this without compensation.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, sponsor.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, any objections to the question? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of Senate Bill 569, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Cheryl, aye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 84, 4 nays.
Senate Bill 569, having received constitutional majority by the clerk, passed by objection. Most reconsider table. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1133 by Chairman Boyd and others relative to energy.
Chairman Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 1133 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Boyd moves passage following second. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Chairman Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 1133 simply adds nuclear energy production facilities to the definition of a certified green energy production facility in the tax code. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I renew my motion.
Chairman Boyd renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Hale, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move previous question.
Previous question been called. There's objection. We're on the board. All those in favor of previous question vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 69, 21 nays.
Previous question prevails. We're voting. All those in favor of House Bill 1133 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 87, 2 nays, 1 present not voting.
House Bill 1133, having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare it passed without objection. Most reconsider statement. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1143 by Chairman Boyd and others relative to energy.
Chairman Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 1143 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Boyd moves passage by second. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Chairman Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Remember, a few years ago, this General Assembly defined a clean energy and it defined renewable energy in state statute. Everyone told me it needed to be one list at that time. They were right, and so we're just basically coming back and merging those two lists into one and adding the word green to it. Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Chairman Boyd renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative McKenzie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to the sponsor, I really appreciate your last bill. It's a great thing. It's going to make all of Tennessee a much better place. So, but with that said, on this particular one, I understand your logic behind it, but I think there may be some unintended consequences as a result of that, and that is, as you know, the only thing nuclear energy produces is a small amount of solids, but pretty much a cloud that comes out of the plant. But the concern is when you add things like natural gas, which is, it's a fossil fuel. It has greenhouse gases to a much lesser extent. It's gonna I think muddy the water when we're trying to grow nuclear. And again, in this country, folks are going to be able to claim credits for fossil fuels, and that might limit our ability in this great state to be the world's foremost producer, R&D facility as it relates to that nuclear piece. Because as you know, there's only so many. The wind's going to only blow so hard in so many different places, and the sun's going to shine effectively in only so many different places. So how would you comment to that this might be a loophole for our consumers to use natural gas instead of producing truly green energy?
Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So you might be confusing the two bills. So the first one was very specific to the tax code as it relates to green energy tax credits. So the only thing on there now is nuclear and wind. And so what this bill does, we've already put this into statute. It's simply merging two lists together. It probably should have gone on the consent. In fact, I think it was, and it got bumped off. But it's really that simple. We've already litigated the clean and renewables. We're putting them together in code in one place and adding the word green to it as well. So this doesn't deal with the tax code.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you. But true. But it kind of does in the fact that when we merge these two lists, what a company will be able to do is say that I'm getting natural gas I'm getting my energy from natural gas or the power distributor, and that's going to allow them certain credits in the same category as truly green energy. So that's my concern. And I'm saying it's a possibility, but that's my concern is that a company or a distributor can say, I'm going to increase my natural gas production at the risk of not having nuclear, and that would be more beneficial to us. So hopefully, did I explain it a little better than I did the first time?
Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, it actually does not do that. It's very clear. Title 67 deals with the green energy tax credits, and we're not opening up that code in this. What we're dealing with here is Title 7, and this is just putting definitions which are already in place, but it's just putting the two lists together. This more pertains to local governments or political subdivisions in the state of Tennessee that make clean, green, or renewable energy requirements of their wholesaler of electricity, and that's all we're addressing here.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you for that response.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of House Bill 1143 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 76, 13 nays, one present, not voting.
House Bill 1143 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion for reconsideration is tabled. Next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1226 by Chairman Lafferty and others relative to the World Health Organization. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Representative Lafferty, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute conform to Senate Bill 0669.
Representative Lafferty moves to substitute conform Senate Bill 669 without objection. So ordered. Representative Lafferty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 669 on third and final consideration.
Representative Lafferty moves passage of Senate Bill 669 on third and final consideration. Properly second. Mr. Clerk, call First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Lafferty, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is simply designed to remove references to the World Health Organization from Tennessee Code. And with that, I'll renew my motion.
Representative Lafferty renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Warner, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On my previous question.
Previous question being called. Is there objection? We'll put it on the board. All those in favor of previous question vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 68, 21 nays.
Previous question prevails. We're voting. All those in favor of Senate Bill 669 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Sapiki, aye. Mr. Clerk, please take your vote.
Aye, 70, 19 nays.
Senate Bill 669 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. Most reconsidered statement. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, that completes the regular calendar.
Next calendar, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, the House has a message calendar.
Call up first message, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 932 by Representative Alexander and others relative to students. Mr. Speaker, on March 6, 2025, the Senate substituted House Bill 932 for Senate Bill 897, adopted Amendment 1, passed House Bill 932 as amended.
Representative Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to concur in Senate Amendment Number 1.
Representative Alexander moves to concur in Senate Amendment Number 1. Properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could you explain what the change was from the Senate?
Representative Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, Leader. They had wanted to add an amendment that the Disabilities Organization wanted to be more specific in what they were allowed to use. And so I agreed with that.
Leader Camper. Very good. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. We're voting. All those in favor of Senate Amendment Number 1 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 90, no nays.
Senate Amendment Number 1 having received constitutional majority, I hereby declare concurred in without objection. Motion reconsidered is tabled. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Unfinished business.
Unfinished business. Representative Russell, you're recognized.
I can't remember who's asked me to sign on, who hadn't.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After consultation with both leaders, I move that the rules be suspended for immediate introduction and consideration of HJR 359.
Mr. Clerk, please read the caption.
House Joint Resolution 359 by Chairman Russell, a resolution to honor and commend Sergeant Cody Manders of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office.
You've heard the caption. Any objections? Without objection, the rules are suspended. Representative Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of House Joint Resolution number 359.
Representative Russell moves adoption of House Joint Resolution 359. Probably seconded. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Joint Resolution 359 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare it adopted without objection. The motion reconsidered is tabled. Representative Reeves, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After consultation with both leaders, I move that the rules be suspended for immediate consideration of SJR number 205.
Mr. Clerk, read the caption.
Senate Joint Resolution 205 by Representative Reeves and others, a resolution to honor Franklin tomorrow on the occasion of its 25th anniversary.
You've heard the caption. Any objections? Without objections, rules suspended. Representative Reeves.
I move to concur in SJR number 205.
Representative Reeves moves to concur in Senate Joint Resolution 205. Properly seconded. Any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare concurred in. Without objection, the motion reconsidered is tabled. Speaker Pro Tem Marsh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the report of District 53 Ad Hoc Committee be adopted and made the action of the House.
You've heard the motion, properly seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Speaker, in a nutshell, this report recommends that the complaint be dismissed and that Representative Powell's provisional status be lifted so that he's seated as any other member.
All right. I'm assuming you're ready to vote then. That's right? All those in favor of adopting the report of the District 53 Ad Hoc Committee, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Reeves, aye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 89, no nays.
The ayes have it. The report of District 53 Ad Hoc Committee is adopted and made the action of the House. Leader Lamberth, are we ready? You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After consulting with the minority leader, I move that House Bill 1086 and House Bill 1325 be heard in the Ag Subcommittee next week.
You've heard the motion. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Leader Lamberth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that House Bill 1344 be heard in the Higher Education Subcommittee next week.
You've heard the motion. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Leader Lamberth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that House Bill 550 be heard in the Public Service Committee, Subcommittee next week.
You've heard the motion. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, we have a message from the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I'm directed to return to the House. House Bill 72, substituted for the Senate bill on the same subject, amended and passed by the Senate.
Monday's message calendar. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Scheduling and procedural announcements.
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, calendar and rules will meet immediately following session in House Hearing Room 1. The final calendar for the Election Subcommittee will be Tuesday, March 25th. The final calendar for Higher Ed Sub and the Criminal Justice Subcommittee will be heard Wednesday, March 26th. The deadline to put bills on notice for all of those calendars will be Wednesday, the 19th at 3:30.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Roll call.
Roll call. Please take the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, 89 members present.
Next order, Mr. Clerk.
That completes the regular order, Mr. Speaker.
Leader Cochran, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House stand in recess until 2 p.m. on Monday, March 17th, 2025.
Without objection, the House stands recess till 2 p.m. on Monday, March 17th, 2025.